In that cold and silent room, the body no longer responded. Eyes closed, heart still. The doctors recorded the time. The machine stopped beeping, but something remained, invisible, unmoving. His soul sat beside him, confused, unable to understand the distance between what it saw and what it felt. It looked down at its own body, lying still. There was no light, no tunnel, no angels. There was silence, a silence so thick it seemed to whisper the weight of eternity, not just the absence of sound, but as if time itself had forgotten to pass. A sacred suspension, like the space between a final breath and the great unknown. And in that moment, something begins. But few ever dare to ask, what truly happens to the soul on the first night after death? Does it depart immediately to heaven, to judgment? Does it understand what has occurred? Or do many souls remain, seated between two worlds, hearing what no one says, seeing what no one perceives? The body has died, but the spirit still breathes memory, and that night is not measured in hours, but in mysteries. Welcome to Bible Stories and Mysteries. If this sacred theme stirs something within your spirit, like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear what few dare to speak, because no one knows the hour. But when it comes, something breaks between the visible and the eternal. It's as if the entire world holds its breath for just one moment to hear the sound of a soul leaving the flesh. Whether in a hospital, a dark room, or a cold sidewalk, it doesn't matter. There is a moment when the body falls silent and the spirit begins to listen. And that's where the first night begins. That night does not begin with light. It begins with absence. The soul still carries the last emotions, the final glance, the last thought. Many do not leave right away. They sit beside themselves as if unsure whether they've died or have simply fallen into a deep sleep. The first night is a threshold, neither heaven nor earth, neither dream nor waking. A space between worlds where the soul still bears the weight of what it lived. There are no angels yet, no judgment, only waiting. A spiritual time that cannot be rushed, as if heaven itself whispers, "Remain a little longer." It is not yet heaven, it is not earth. The soul floats in a space unnamed, no ground beneath, no sky above. It is not dream, and yet it is not fully awake. The soul watches, feels, remembers. It carries the final vibrations of what just passed, the last breath, the last heartbeat, the last regret. In this liminal space, the soul sits as if waiting for understanding, waiting for permission to move. Mystics have spoken of this with holy reverence. Saint Faustina, in her divine visions, saw souls lingering near their own bodies, confused, stunned by the rupture between flesh and eternity. They were not condemned, they were awakening. Some tried to embrace their loved ones, touching nothing. Others circled the ones they loved, whispering in silence, hoping for one last farewell. The soul still feels the world it left, not physically but spiritually. There is love and sorrow and longing. Not yet judgment, not yet release, only presence. This is not a moment of fear. It is a moment of clarity. A spiritual mirror begins to form, and the soul sees what it never dared to look at before. It sees what it loved, what it feared, what it avoided. The invisible begins to speak, and the soul listens with something deeper than ears. Have you ever sensed it? That strange stillness after someone has passed, as if something still remains in the room. Many speak of faint sounds, a familiar scent, a soft, invisible touch. These are not accidents. They are echoes of the spirit still present, whispering what was left unsaid. And in that hush, one truth becomes clear. The invisible is more real than we imagined. Death is not a sudden end. It is a quiet unfolding, a peeling away of layers until only the soul remains, holding everything it ever was, everything it never said, and everything it must now become. This first night, it is not just for the one who departs, it is for those who remain, a sacred time of mourning and of listening, because heaven may be closer than ever, and there are souls that still hear us. At the wake, in our prayers, in the silence between tears. That is why the church keeps vigil, why we light candles, why we pray rosaries, because love still reaches even after the final breath. Imagine waking up and seeing yourself lying there, not in a dream, not in a mirror, but outside yourself. Many who have brushed the edge of death describe it. The strange sense of standing beside their body, fully awake, yet completely unmoored. There is no pain, no weight, but also no ground. The soul is suspended between a whisper and a calling, between the world it knew and a mystery too vast to name. It looks around, searching for something familiar, something real. But everything has changed. Mystics call this moment a gentle rupture, but one that cannot be undone. There is no return. The soul begins to float, not upward, not downward, but inward. It sees the faces around it, sees the hands trying to revive it, sees the tears, and for many, this is the first shock of eternity. Some describe colors that don't exist in this world, sounds that don't belong to human language, a presence that feels like pure peace. But for others, there is no light, only awareness. A deep, haunting clarity, as if the soul has awakened not from sleep, but into the truth of itself. It tries to speak, but has no voice, tries to move, but has no form. All it has is memory, presence, and an aching thirst for meaning. It begins to sense, I am still alive, but in a different way. It still feels love, longing, confusion, even remorse, like stones in the spirit. Some souls try to walk back home. Others remain near their bodies, silent, watching. This is the moment the soul knows it has departed, but not where it is going. It is a reverse birth, from the visible into the invisible, a return not to darkness, but to mystery. Have you ever heard such a story? Perhaps a loved one once described leaving their body in a moment between life and death. Or perhaps you yourself have felt it in a dream or a moment of deep stillness, as if something in you stepped beyond. These stories, dismissed by many, carry a truth the soul cannot forget. After the soul separates, comes the astonishment. There are no more heartbeats, no clocks, no calendars. The soul floats in a space where time has lost its rhythm. It does not move forward. It waits, it watches, it remembers, it wonders, am I alone, or am I being watched by heaven? Those who have stood near the dying often describe this stillness. I felt like he was still there, they say. A door creaks with no breeze. A faint perfume appears in the air. A presence lingers in the room like an unspoken word. This is not fear. It is not illusion. It is the echo of a soul that has not yet departed. Mystics speak of this sacred pause, when heaven leans close in silence to hear what the soul cannot yet say. The soul sees, but not only itself, it sees others, sees what was left unfinished, the words never spoken, the forgiveness never offered, the hands never held, and in that seeing begins the transformation. Time has stopped, so the soul can face itself. No masks, no distractions, only truth. And during this pause, prayers carry a weight they will never carry again. That is why the first night is a holy territory, a spiritual battleground, but also a sacred altar. The rosary whispered beside a body, a psalm murmured in the darkness, a candle flickering in a quiet room. All of it is heard. All of it matters. Each prayer is like a thread of light stretched across the divide, and the soul answers. even if we don't understand how, because eternity speaks in silence. There are nurses who swear time stopped in that room, families who felt the air shift, who sensed something leave or linger, priests who say they've seen a peace descend that made no earthly sense. The soul may not cross immediately. It may stand at the edge, unsure. And why do so many remain? Some do not know they have died. Others do not want to believe it. Fear, guilt, love, unfinished vows. These things bind the soul. And some remain just waiting for a word, a prayer, a blessing, a goodbye, for something, anything to tell them, you may go. Not every soul departs when the body dies. Some linger, not by choice but by weight, not punishment but pause. They sit at the edge of the world, not because they were not called, but because they do not yet know how to answer. The soul can still feel, and what it feels binds it. Some do not know they have died. Others refuse to accept it. Some souls fear the light, not because it is cruel, but because it reveals. There are souls tied by regret, by guilt, by words that were never said, wounds never healed, love never expressed, and the soul stays, circling the places it loved, the people it left. There are mothers who remain near their children, sons who hover near grieving fathers, spouses who return to their home the next day, friends who appear in dreams trying to say one last thing. These are not ghosts, they are souls, suspended, waiting, yearning. They do not haunt, they hope. They ask not to be feared, but remembered, not rejected but prayed for. They are the forgotten ones, not by heaven, but by the earth. And all they ask is love, a word, a prayer, a bridge. Even one rosary whispered in the dark can be enough for them to move forward. The invisible is not strange, it is too intimate to ignore. That is why the Church urges us, pray for the dead. The Mass, the intentions, the rosary with tears. These are not rituals. They are ropes of light thrown into the shadows where some souls wait for the courage to cross. God, in his endless patience, allows this time, not to punish, but to prepare. Because the soul must let go of what it clings to. And sometimes, what holds us back is not hell, but unfinished love. That last embrace, that final blessing, that longed-for word, I forgive you. And in that holy between time, where eternity touches time, the light still waits. It does not force, it does not flee. It waits, like a door left open, and when everything falls quiet, something begins to awaken. The soul, still hovering between worlds, begins to see what it never wanted to face. Not the world, but itself. When everything else fades, the soul begins to see. Not the world around it, but within. Not with eyes, but with a kind of eternal sight. A mirror opens in the silence. And not just any mirror, but one made of truth. The soul looks in and sees everything. Not as memories, but as revelations. Every choice, every omission, every time it loved, every time it looked away. Not a judge speaking, but the soul remembering what heaven already knows. And this remembrance is not to shame. It is to awaken. The soul sees who it became and who it could have been. The ancient Christian faith teaches that there is an immediate judgment after death. But before the verdict comes a vision. Before the throne of justice, there is a call, a gentle but holy invitation. See yourself, see as I see you, not to condemn, but to make the soul ready to receive mercy or reject it. God never forces. He calls and waits. He knocks, but never breaks through the door. And in this moment of waiting, not all souls are ready to answer. Some tremble, some hide, others weep, not in fear of wrath, but in sorrow over what they did not become. The soul feels what it could have healed, and chose not to. There are those who see fields of peace, the fruit of quiet kindness and unseen prayers. Others walk deserts of regret, not because they are punished, but because they must understand what love would have meant. The soul now walks through its own life as heaven saw it. And nothing is small. Every gesture echoes, every silence speaks. One soul may see a single moment of forgiveness, and that moment glows like a sun. Another sees the countless times it turned inward, away from love, and those shadows linger asking, "Why didn't you come back?" The soul understands that nothing was hidden, not from God, not from itself, and that clarity is not cruelty, it is grace. The saints warned of this hour, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross. They knew the soul would one day be shown who it truly is, without illusions, and that knowledge would either be light or fire, but not fire from without. A fire that burns from longing, from knowing that the time to love has passed, and the soul did not answer. But even here, it is not too late. Even here, there is a door, because the soul is still able to respond, and what it says in silence, that answer, will shape everything that comes next. This is why they prayed for a holy death, not just to escape suffering, but to face that mirror with peace, with God inside. Not every soul enters eternity like a flame rising into heaven. Some remain in a wilderness of the spirit, a holy desert not made of sand, but of memory, a place where there is no road, only the echoes of the life just lived. For these souls, the crossing is not denied, but delayed by the weight they still carry. This wilderness is not punishment, it is mercy, a space where the soul walks without feet, weeps without eyes, remembers without effort. There are no stars to guide them, only the inner landscape, what they loved, what they feared, what they left undone. And in that inner terrain, they wander, searching for the courage to surrender. For some, the journey is soft and full of light, because they lived in love. For others, the path is long, because the heart was hard or broken. The soul still hears the voice of God calling, "Come." But not all can answer right away. "I'm not ready," the soul whispers. "Not yet." Not out of rebellion, but fear. Fear of the light. Fear of judgment, fear of being seen finally without masks. The soul knows what it did and what it didn't. It remembers the prayers never prayed, the apologies never spoken, the grace it rejected. Not with shame alone, but with aching clarity. And that clarity burns, not like fire, but like truth. Some souls cannot move because they are still tethered to their children, to their homes, to unfinished forgiveness. Some stay because they never believed God was love. Others because they never believed they were lovable. And yet, even in that wilderness, heaven does not leave them alone. There are voices, not loud, but holy. A tearful prayer whispered over a coffin, a candle lit in a dark room, a rosary held with shaking hands. These are not empty rituals. They are rivers cutting through the dry ground. They are ladders lowered from heaven into the soul's exile. And the soul, feeling their warmth, begins to hope. This is the mystery. God does not rush the soul. He waits. And when the soul, even faintly, begins to turn toward him, not with confidence, but with longing, he moves, not with thunder, but with mercy. And the wilderness begins to open, the dawn begins to rise, and the soul dares at last to say, yes. The soul does not journey alone. Even in the silence of death, it is not forgotten. There is a mysterious thread between the living and the dead, woven by prayer, lit by candles, soaked in tears. And in the first night after death, that thread burns brightest. It is not merely tradition, it is rescue. What if one whispered prayer could open the door for a wandering soul? What if one Ave Maria, spoken through sobs, became a bridge across eternity? The saints believed this, not as poetry, but as truth. St. Catherine of Genoa said that no prayer offered from the heart is ever wasted. Not one. There are stories told in hushed voices of a room filled with peace after a single rosary, of a presence leaving only after someone knelt and prayed out loud, of candles that refused to go out until the soul was gone. These are not superstitions, they are signs, sacred signs, that the veil is thinner than we think. Imagine the soul, still hovering, still unsure, still aching, and then it hears, "You are not alone." It feels the weight of a psalm recited beside its body. It senses the love behind a trembling "Our Father." It sees a child, not understanding death, but folding small hands in prayer. That is the moment the soul begins to let go. Prayer is not a comfort only for the living. It is light for the dead, a sacred language that crosses every barrier. You do not need perfect words. Heaven does not measure eloquence. It measures sincerity. A tear can be a prayer. A sigh can be a lifeline. Silence, offered with love, can thunder through eternity. The Church has always known this. That's why we pray novenas, light candles, hold vigils, offer masses for the dead. The first night is not an empty space. It is a battlefield of invisible choices. And your prayer can be the hand that steadies a trembling soul, or the flame that shows them the way. There are testimonies, ancient and new, of souls who found peace only after someone prayed for them by name. A wife who lit a candle every night, a stranger who offered a rosary at a wake, a priest who whispered a final blessing when no one else did. In that moment, the soul heard and crossed. Prayer is not magic. It is love speaking heaven's language. It is mercy made visible. It is your heart becoming a lamp in the darkness. And for some souls, it is the only light they'll see until they say, "Yes, Lord, I come." Not every farewell happens beside a coffin. Some goodbyes come after the tears, after the funeral, in the quietest hours of the night, when the soul reaches out one last time through dreams that are more than dreams. These are not mere imaginings, they are encounters, and when they happen, the heart knows they were here. People awaken weeping, but peaceful. A presence stood by their bed. A voice called their name. A familiar fragrance, a touch on the shoulder, a single look filled with light. No explanation fits, because it was not of this world. It was permission from heaven for a soul to say, "Goodbye, I love you, I'm free." Some speak of vivid dreams, too real to forget, not filled with symbols, but presence. Sometimes no words are spoken, just the face, the eyes, a gesture they used in life. Others say they heard a door open at night, or a faint whisper that brought peace, not fear. These are not hallucinations, they are grace. The Church, in wisdom, does not claim or deny these events. It listens, it discerns. It understands that the veil between life and death is not sealed. It is soft, especially in the first hours after passing, because God, in His mercy, may allow one last touch, not for the dead, but for the living. And those visitations change people. Some who had walked away from faith return. Some who held grudges release them. Some who feared death find courage. Because the soul, even absent, leaves a trail of eternity in its wake, a signature of light, a final act of love, whispered from the edge of heaven. Have you ever experienced this? A dream so real you woke with tears, a presence beside you so gentle yet undeniable. If so, perhaps it was not memory. Perhaps it was a soul completing the journey, pausing to say what life did not allow. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. I'll see you again. And if you have not received such a dream, it does not mean you were forgotten. Some souls pass gently, with no need to return. Others visit not once, but often, until their final light fades into peace. But every prayer, every remembrance keeps that window open. And when the time is right, the soul will come not to stay, but to bless. There comes a moment, not marked by time, but by truth, when the soul can no longer delay. It stands at the edge of all it knew and all it has become, not as a prisoner, but as a child, unsure whether to step into the arms it cannot yet see. And yet, the invitation remains. Come. What most forget is that free will does not end with death. God, who never forced love in life, will not force surrender in eternity. The soul must choose, not as a legal verdict, but as an inner yielding. It must say yes, and many do not say it immediately. They look back, they hold on, they ask silently, "Can I stay a little longer?" It's not rebellion, it's love, often misplaced, a mother who feels her children need her, a soul that fears judgment, though mercy waits. Some hesitate because they still believe they're unworthy, others because they cannot imagine letting go of the life they built, even if it is now behind them. But God is patient, eternally so. He does not shout, he does not threaten, he waits. And in that waiting, his presence grows closer, warmer, brighter. Not as a blinding light, but like a memory of love long forgotten. The soul begins to sense, I was always wanted, I was always seen, I am not alone. This is the final mystery. The soul must not be pushed, it must be drawn. And when it finally whispers, yes, even if trembling, even if with tears, the whole of heaven moves, not with thunder, but with joy. The soul begins to rise, not like fire, but like fragrance, not in fear, but in trust. This moment is not seen by those left behind, but sometimes they feel it. A sudden peace in the home, a deep breath after hours of tension, a warmth in the air that wasn't there before. And they know, without proof, without reason, they've gone. Not vanished, but embraced, not ended, but welcomed. The soul, having wandered, wept and waited, now moves like a petal falling into light. Angels approach, not always with wings, not always with trumpet, but in the form of pure presence. For some, it is a saint. For others, a loved one already in glory. For many, it is the face of Christ himself, and in that face all fear dissolves. There is no more weight, no more doubt. The ties are released. The regrets fall away like ashes. The soul brings nothing with it but love. And even the love it failed to give is now transformed, because God does not waste longing. He heals it. This is not fantasy. This is not fiction. This is the sacred hope of the Christian mystery. That the final word belongs not to death, but to God. That the journey of the soul is not a courtroom, but a return, a homecoming. And when that final surrender happens, the invisible becomes visible. Heaven opens, not like a gate, but like a dawn, and the soul steps through. Somewhere, right now, a soul is whispering, yes, and heaven is listening. If this journey has stirred something within you, a memory, a longing, a tear, know this: you are not alone. The veil is thin. Eternity is closer than we think. Comment, "Wait for me in the light," if this spoke to your soul. Subscribe to Bible Stories and Mysteries and walk with us into the sacred unknown. Each story, each silence, each prayer is one step closer to the eternal, and the soul never forgets.